All right, well, let's round up. Hi, that's a really interesting shot of my forehead. This is my large forehead. That's Jen's forehead.
Oh, gosh.
All right. Is this because of the whole hair situation? Is that why we're doing this?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay, all right, so that was a really unexpected introduction there. So let's properly introduce Dan Riskin, CTV science and tech expert or guru. Dan, you didn't zoom in on your own camera.
No, no, I didn't. I made the artistic choice not to do that.
Yeah, we're talking hair. And apparently this didn't evolve to keep us warm. It keeps you cool, which is weird because in the summer I get a really tight fade thinking, okay, it's going to keep me cool, but this is going to counter all of that.
Well, so this is really interesting. I mean, as Canadians, we all have tried going out in really cold weather without a hat, and we've suffered.
Right.
And we know that hair does keep you warm, but that's not why it evolved. We didn't evolve in Canada. We evolved in Africa where things were a little hotter. And so researchers basically made a bunch of thermal mannequins with wigs of human hair and looked at how well they repelled heat, dumped heat under different levels of sunlight with different humidities and wind. And the big take home is that hair actually keeps you cool in the summer. So on a sunny day, that hair keeps you cool. And what's really neat is that short hair, a buzz cut, is more effective than long hair. It just helps to create, it keeps that sunlight from heating up your head. So people that are bald, sweat from their head about 3 times more than people who have hair on their head.
Whoa.
And that's because they're trying to make up for what hair is not doing for them. So it's just, I've never even thought of that, but yeah, your hair actually keeps you cool.
That is so fascinating. You know, it kind of makes sense because I don't have much hair at the crown of my head from...
I don't have much at all.
Yeah, and I was in Dominican and I actually got a pretty bad sunburn on my scalp.
Right,
you noticed it, right?
Yeah,
and I was like, hair is really important. It's like a, you know, a very tight umbrella for your head.
It's an air conditioner on your head.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, Dan, and moving on to this, I'm curious to know what personality traits are correlated with accumulating wealth?
This is really interesting. It's a UK study, and there are all kinds of things that coordinate with how much money you accumulate in your life. One is that you want to get a high-paying job. That really helps. But the other thing is you got to spend less than you make, and the personality traits tend to correlate with this. And so there's this this big 5 personality traits that are this standardized test for psychology. And so there's openness to new experiences, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, these big 5 that capture a lot of the information. And the one that stands out in this study is conscientiousness. So if you are more conscientious, that means that you tend to value hard work, you like to get things done, you like to complete tasks, you like to plan ahead. That suite of traits is even more strongly correlated with growing your wealth than more education. So it's very powerful, and those are personality traits that can really go a long way.
That is fascinating, the conscientious side of things. You think it'd be more selfishness rather
that's what you think.
Rather than that. Yeah, that is really interesting, Dan. Okay, well, all of us are parents with young kids, and sports, it turns out, in young kids. I think a lot of us thought this, but it turns out it does lead to better mental health a few years down the road.
Yeah, this is a nice one because they're tracking a cohort of kids that are growing up right now. And they did a bunch of interviews with them when they were 6 years old, and then they followed up when they were 13. And what they've found from their data is that if kids are in sports, organized sports at the age of 6, they tend to have better mental health at the age of 13. So years later. And the thought is that it helps with their self-esteem. It helps them feel a sense of that they're part of something, and it helps with their development. And so you get dividends on these things. So even though when they're 6, you're not as worried about their social lives as you will be when they're teenagers, you can make those investments, putting them in organized sports. And this was any organized sport, even dance, but not things like just get lots of exercise at the park with your friends or ride a bike to school. This was an organized, structured sport that gives them a sense of identity.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, certainly does. Okay, CTV science and tech expert Dan Riskin, always appreciate it. Fascinating stuff. We'll chat with you next week.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks a lot.
All right, remember that? That's the moment the Argos celebrated becoming the 2022 Grey Cup championship team. Doesn't that have a nice ring to it?
Yes, and speaking of rings, the bling has officially arrived in Toronto, and for more on this new piece and to talk about the 150th Toronto Argonauts anniversary season, we are joined this morning by Argos quarterback Chad Kelly and Barron Championship ring CEO Peter Canis. His company designed this beautiful ring. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so let's start with you, Chad. You're wearing the real ring. It's huge. It's on your finger, but compared to this replica that 10,000 fans are going to get this this Sunday. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. What's your reaction to the design? Because, I mean, you have another ring as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, words can't describe how big it is, first of all. I mean, we're super thankful to have, you know, Baron to be able to, you know, design such a fantastic ring, and the replica ring looks exactly like it. I mean, fans, the first 10,000 fans that show up at the game, get ready for an awesome, you know, replica ring, and it looks so real, and we're just super thankful to, you know, have an opportunity to put one of these on.
Pretty sweet piece of bling indeed, right? As an athlete, that's what you're working for. And Peter, you worked on this ring. We're sort of showing some of the sort of highlight reel, I guess we could say, of the ring. Describe what you're looking at here, because there's some really intricate detail.
I mean, what was unique about the ring is their boat logo, right? It was that was when we had the presentation with the ring committee. It was the priority. Let's get this logo and make it look great. And that's the centerpiece of the ring. It's got a great custom stone in the middle with gold inlays that represent the oars. Then we've got the wave at the bottom. It's got 18 stones represent the 18 championships the Grey Cup had, and then obviously the sail with the Argos A at the top. So that was the centerpiece of the ring. It had to make sure it had a lot of bling and stood out. So
and it's certainly very heavy. I mean, I'm wearing. Let's just compare with Chad and mine. I mean, his is a bit bigger, but hey, if you're a fan and you come out, you can get one of these 10,000 rings. So how can fans? You just show up and be the first 10,000 to get one at the game this Sunday?
Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so get ready.
Chad, when you first put that ring on, what did that feel like, knowing that you were a CFL champion so early in your career as well?
Yeah, you know, grace of God, first of all. Second, you know, all the blood, sweat, and tears that everybody put in. I mean, there was so much time, effort, and, you know, not only the coaches, but the players and staff to really make everything come full hand in hand this year. And you know, it's just a joy to know that our hard work paid off.
Yeah, and Peter, are you a CFL Argos fan?
I am. I mean, I was born in Toronto, so I've always been an Argos fan growing up,
Okay, and what do you think for the upcoming season? Do you think they can win back-to-back championships?
Well, we're already thinking of how we're going to make this better. So, right?
The 19th diamond has got to be in there somewhere, right?
Exactly.
But what about this season, Chad? You got the home opener coming up this coming Sunday, Father's Day. What's the feeling around the team about running it back again?
Yeah, obviously we have our eyes set on a new season. We got a whole new crew. I think, you know, the best thing we can do is put last season behind us and understand that everybody's going to, you know, be gunning for us at each and every game. And so we got to make sure we're on our P's and Q's, make sure we're really dialed in each exact snap. And, you know, one play might be the deciding factor in the game, and you just never know when that is.
The CFL is such a quarterback-driven league. You're the quarterback of the Toronto Argos now. Like, what does that feel like to sort of be, you know, at the helm of the team? Like, what kind of pressure is that on your shoulders?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. It makes me elevate my game a little bit more with the pressure. But, you know, I have a fantastic group of guys around me, fantastic coaches, fantastic players that my job is to get them in the right situation, stay, you know, in the positive down and distance, right? And those guys will make a ton of plays. I just got to get them the ball.
Right.
Yeah, and there's some new rules and changes to the CFL this year. Do you think that's going to impact how you guys play as a team? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're too major, but, you know, being able to obviously take the ball at the 40-yard line after a field goal, you know, obviously the hashes have moved in, and I think those things obviously elevate a lot more scoring, and that's what I obviously enjoy, and I think a lot of fans enjoy as well. So I think you're going to keep seeing a lot of touchdowns and points being scored.
Maybe you can score some more bling this year, but thanks for sharing the bling with us, Peter. Chad,
gorgeous.
appreciate you joining us. And again, those first 10,000 fans could pick up one of these. Not one of those, but that is really impressive. Thanks for sharing all the details this morning, both of you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, guys.
Tell me something. You can go anywhere. Another timeline. Another universe. So why do you want to stay and fight to save this one?
All right, the much anticipated latest installment in the DC universe, The Flash, is set to open in theaters on June 16th. The film explores the impact and ramifications of time travel, and it stars Michael Keaton, Michael Shannon, Ron Livingston, Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, I should say. And joining us now is one of the new stars of the film, albeit his character's kind of shrouded in mystery. Luke Brandon Field, though, joining us from LA early early this morning, his time. Thank you so much for being with us, Luke. So first of all, let's get into this. Your character in this film, it's not quite known. Even if you go on IMDb, I think it just has the letter N under your name. Can you tell us who you play?
Yes, so I am the villain at the start of the movie, Al Falcone, part of the Falcone family, who are the mob family in Gotham, and yeah, super exciting.
All right, and when you got the call to play this role and be part of this epic universe, I mean, we have the two Michaels, Michael Keaton and also Michael Shannon as General Zod in this, as well as Ben Affleck reprising his role as Batman. How did you feel working on set with these other actors?
I mean, it's a dream for any actor. You know, as you just said, that roll call and many more is just incredible. And just to learn from those guys by being in the same room as some of them is just, for an actor, is beyond.
And going back to your acting history, we, of course, know you as Kristoff from the very successful film Jojo Rabbit. You're also the young Daniel Malloy in Interview with the Vampire on AMC, which has been renewed for season 2. So congrats for that. But what was kind of different about this role, aside the fact that it's like a big kind of superhero blockbuster? Did you have to channel anything different or special?
Well, I read a lot of the comic books previously, especially The Long Halloween, which my character is involved in. So that was really interesting. But the big difference for me was also, you know, well, this stuff is big budget, but this is like huge size budget. And so it's just amazing to be on set to see how they do everything. I mean, we all take it for granted when we watch it in the cinema, but it really does take a whole army to build such an amazing film like The Flash. And just to see it from inception to big screen and be a part of it is truly amazing.
And what did your father think? Because I know he is, you know, a big entertainment film guy. He's been in the industry for 40 years. What was his reaction? Has he seen you in this film yet? Yes,
we went to the premiere on Monday night, and he was, you know, proud as punch. He was just, you know, he was, in Yiddish, as we say, he was kvelling. He was so happy. And, you know, I think, you know, he's my best mate. So to have him next to me, and we went to Jojo Rabbit together as well. And it's just so nice, you know.
And Luke, I want to ask you, you know, The Flash, it deals with what is it, Scarlet Speedster, who goes forward and back in time. And in this movie, Ezra Miller's character, Barry Allen, is trying to go back in the past to prevent his mother's death. I want to ask you personally, because I always kind of do this with some of the guests on the show, if you could go forward or back in time to a moment in a moment in your life that you would rather change or, you know, try to manipulate, what would that moment be?
Wow, I mean, that's a really great question. Immediately, the first thing that comes to mind is I'm pretty happy at this moment. So I feel really good. So everything that I did in the past got me here. So I'm doing okay. But maybe I'd go to the future. I don't know. I feel pretty comfortable.
Okay, you seem like a pretty content guy. And Luke, going back to Jojo Rabbit, you're like, yeah, I am.
I mean, I feel good. I don't feel like I need to go back in time at the moment, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. That's a fair answer for sure. Jojo Rabbit, I mean, you star as Kristoff, which is kind of the Hitler Youth, and you did a lot of research for this, but maybe not a lot of people know that you have a Jewish background. Both your parents are Jewish. You grew up in the UK, a part of London, where there was actually quite a history surrounded in kind of like the Nazi occupation, and there was a house across the street from you where there was a neighbor that you spoke to that you were surprised about to learn some of this history. Can you take us back to that moment?
Yeah, after I did the movie, I really got in touch with my background and my roots. And I found out about a great story about a group of Jewish guys who had been servicemen for England after the war, who formed effectively the first anti-fascist group in the UK. And one of them wrote a book. They were all, you know, in their late 80s, early 90s, and one of them wrote a book. And I decided to really study this, and it turned out to be my next door neighbor, which was pretty insane. I just, you know, I'd see this elderly man, you know, with his shopping, and I wouldn't think anything of it. And then I realized that he was a bastion and a champion for against fascism some 60, 70 years before, which was crazy, and, you know, something super special.
Wow, that is fascinating stuff. Luke Brendan-Field, we can't wait to catch you in The Flash and also in season 2 of Interview with the Vampire. Thanks so much for waking up so early for us. Look forward to seeing more of your work. Take care.
Thank you. My pleasure. Have a good day, everyone.
You too.
And they're off. Okay, presented by Ontario Racing. With support from Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, Unfiltered is an unscripted docuseries unveiling a behind-the-scenes look at one of the world's most exhilarating sports. For more, we're joined by the director of the 5-part series, Jeremy Grant. Good morning to you.
Pleasure to be here.
This was awesome to watch. So for me, I mean, I don't know a ton about horse racing, but occasionally I used to go to Sunday at the Races at Woodbine. And it really is such a dramatic, exciting sort of 2-minute race, and then you get a chance to do a little socializing. And you're kind of looking down going, I wonder what goes into this. But you kind of go back to the horse racing itself. This pulls back the curtain. For me, this was pull back the curtain, really interesting stories. How would you describe what you're putting together with this series?
Absolutely. Like when I've watched the sport and fell in love with it, it's 2 minutes. It's still like the most exciting 2 minutes of a Super Bowl game. It's exciting 2 minutes. But there is a lifetime of work that goes into that. So following this series, we really wanted to get to know the characters, the love, the passion, the horses, everything behind it. There is so much. You'll hear me use the word passion a lot, and it's the title of the first episode. But there's so much love that goes into this sport, love for the animals, love for racing, and it really is like these people dedicate their lives. So the show is really peeling that back, looking at the characters, the human faces, and the horses behind it.
Now, I watched the first episode, which is dropped. Tell me a little bit about where people can find it. I'll give you my impressions.
Absolutely. So you can watch it on Crave and tsn.ca. And it's really, yeah, just check it out, get into it. We're shooting it as it goes, so you'll get to watch the season as it unfolds.
It's so cool. I love the way you've come to it, almost with the eye of an outsider. We were talking in the break that you didn't know a lot about horse racing as well. Obviously, you know a lot about directing, but you get us right in there. Talk about pulling back the curtain. You've got the camera mounted on the buggy, and we learn a lot as well. I mean, it doesn't overload you with information, but we come a little bit more savvy with the sport.
Totally. Well, I come from an outside perspective. I haven't documented horse racing my whole life. But I came into it, and I fell in love with it immediately, and that was my job, was to bring people into it. So luckily, the community behind the sport is so inviting. So they brought us in, they opened the curtains, they showed us everything. So we really have an all-access look to it. The title of the series is Unfiltered, and it is a glimpse at everything that goes into it.
And it's not just the sport, but the relationship as well. I didn't realize the kind of the dynamic between the trainer and the driver, and both of them and the horse. So there's no stories, even though you're capturing it instead of necessarily scripted. It's really powerful.
It absolutely, and it is like at its core, it's about human relationships and human-animal relationships. Like the relationship with a horse is one of our oldest relationships. So it is relationships between trainers, jockeys, drivers, like groomers. There is, I've heard it put, one of the Emma Jane Wilson, who's one of the women I interviewed for this, incredible jockey, she said it's the sport of kings, but there's a lot of peasants. There's a lot of people just blue collar working hard to get it done.
Super hard working. One of the items, it's not really giving too much away, but it's kind of funny to see the passion. You say passion a lot. One of the trainers has an allergy to hay and horses, and yet he didn't want to do anything else.
Absolutely, and you hear that everywhere. Like looking for these stories, you find people that fell in love with it through family, through going to the track, and then have just dedicated their lives to it.
All right, well, thank you for pulling back the curtain, and I can't wait to see more. Jeremy Grant, once again, Unfiltered, rather, is now, both ways would go work, is now streaming on Crave, and I can't wait to see more of this. Thank you so much.
Perfect, thank you.